Hi. So I thought it would just be fun to talk about video games for a few minutes, and this is basically just going to be a trip down memory lane. I'm not going to really be getting into the topic per se. I don't think. I'm just going to be talking about past experiences because I don't game anymore. I haven't gamed in quite a while, like at least 15 years. So, and the only system I own right now is an NES Classic Mini, which has some really good games on there, but it's just it's just on display on the shelf, and I don't play it. Um, Although I do remember when I first got it, which was right around, I think it was early 2020. And I plugged it in, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna beat Mario 1 really fast. Like I used to be able to beat that in like 10 minutes or whatever, no problem every time, right? When you don't play a game for a while, you suck. I kept dying and dying and dying. And I was like, what the heck? What's wrong? What's going on here? This used to be so simple. This used to be so easy. This used to be so, yeah, I'm going to beat this. No, yeah. Like dying 6 times in a row. I'm like, okay, hold on. I got to switch to something else. So I go to Mario 3. Of course, it's a bigger game, but I used to be able to beat it, you know, pretty dependably back in the day as well. Great game. And, sometimes I'd want to take the short route, you know, or sometimes I just want to, take the scenic route, different times. And I decide, first time around, I'm going to do the short route, and then I'm going to take the scenic route afterwards. The short route wasn't so short. I still sucked at it until I put some time back into it. That's what happens with video games. You got to put the time in. I guess that's what it is with anything. Um, if you want to be good at it, efficient at it, you gotta put the time in. You gotta put the effort in. Um, and then it had a bunch of games on there that I'd never actually played or um, no, there were a couple there were a bunch I hadn't played, and then there were others I only played a little bit back in the day, like Castlevania and Super Contra. Um, of course, there was Zelda back in the day. Okay, let me get away from that and start the reminiscing here. Okay, so I'm born in late '81. The NES comes out in '85, right? I think I didn't look that up. I think that's what it is. And so the Nintendo boom is really underway by the time um, I'm becoming consciously conscious of the world. And the neighbors across the field had a Nintendo. So I was able to watch them play sometimes. And of course, I saw the ads, and because in the late '80s, early '90s, Nintendo was huge. I mean, it was like you had to be there. You just had to be there. It was on everything. The Nintendo logo and Mario everywhere, man. It was around the same, the late '80s, early '90s. Also, I had Freddie Mania. Of course, there was Freddy Krueger was this huge celebrity. Um, the that time period was very good at getting people really excited about stuff and really into it and buying a lot of it. But it was an era of enthusiasm, I tell you what. But so I wanted a Nintendo when I was little, and of course, yeah, it cost some money back then, and we didn't have a whole heck of a lot to spare. So my mom was like, "No, no, I'm not spending $200 on that." Um, but then eventually, my older sister bought one. I bought a Nintendo Action Pack. Uh, but soon thereafter, she moved out. Um, she was, you know, in her mid to later teens, I guess later teens. She moved into her first apartment. I think it might have been her only apartment, but anyway, um, I remember. Oh my gosh, I remember that apartment. It had a little, just a little balcony on it. She had a phone, one of those phones that, um, you know, the head and earpiece fit into the other piece perfectly, and you know, move it around. And it was clear. It was made of clear plastic, which at the time I thought was the coolest thing. And she ate a lot of ramen noodles. So those were my two memories of that period, that apartment. Um, Unfortunately, she had a friend who proved to not be much of a friend, who actually broke into her apartment and robbed her, taking, among other things, the Nintendo. So that didn't last very long. Then a few years later, my mom actually did get a Nintendo. She got it used. A person that she knew was getting rid of a Nintendo. His son, I guess, was getting rid of his Nintendo. So she bought it off of them, and it came and gave it to me. And it came with 3 games: Mario Duck Hunt, Excite Bike, and Hoops. I didn't care about Hoops. I've never cared about sports, real or video game version. I barely played Excite Bike. I was mainly into Mario. And then that Christmas, after getting the Nintendo, my older sister, again, gave me The Legend of Zelda for Christmas. Very exciting. I opened that thing up, put it in the Nintendo, and started playing. I didn't look at the instruction manual. I just hit that start button, and I got the sword. I found the first labyrinth, and I beat the first boss, and got the first piece of the Triforce without knowing what the heck I was doing. No clue, no idea what I was doing. I was just not like, oh, it looks like there's something up ahead I can go into, and there's the old man saying, it's dangerous to go uh, unarmed. Take this with you, you know. And then I'm going to the right. I'm taking out these creatures and getting rubies, and I'm going up, and I found this. There's a bridge. I go across the bridge. I go into there, and then the spooky music plays, and anyway, I beat it. And then after I got the first piece of the Triforce, then I looked at the instruction manual, um, and that was so. Yeah, that was a great game. It's still a great game. And I remember a few years later, a guy I knew from church, I guess you could call him a friend. Um, I didn't. I'm not a person who makes friends easily or that strongly. I don't really get that close, but to people. But we were friends enough, so he actually came over one night and spent the night, and we basically spent it playing video games. And we rented a couple. There was a store where you could rent video games. We got Ninja Turtles 3, I think. Turtles in Manhattan, I think it was, which was a really good game. And then there was, I think, Super Toad that we rented as well. But we also played Zelda. And we were playing Zelda for a while there, and we were making a lot of progress, adding a lot of hearts to our life thingy, right? And collecting a lot of items and stuff, right? And then all of a sudden, it glitched. It froze up. And we're like, oh no. So we're like, okay, let's see if we can do this. And we press in the reset button and hold it. We press in the start button and hold it. We release the reset button, release the power button, take out the cartridge, put it back in really quick, really carefully, push it down really carefully, push the start button, and we're like, okay, please work, please work. We got to the menu screen. We had lost all our progress. We were sitting on the floor, but I just fell over, and my friend just fell right on top of me. We were just like, no. We probably just put in another game at that point. It was like, yeah, that's deflating. But and when I got the NES Mini, many years later, and started playing Zelda, um, yeah, I didn't get as far as and originally when I played Zelda as a kid, I actually got all the way to Ganon. I just never beat him. Um, I was right there, but didn't quite beat him. Um, with when I played it grown up a few years ago, I got as far. I think I got as far as beating Labyrinth number 5, um, and didn't get through Labyrinth 6. So there's that. Um, but anyway, back in the day again, um, after being given Zelda for Christmas, I also wanted to get Mario 3, which at the time was was pretty new, because I think Mario 3 came out in like 1990 or something, didn't it? It was it wasn't it wasn't long before the SNES came out. Um, and I remember playing the SNES in Walmart. Because back in the day, you had Nintendo systems available to play in various stores. I remember playing Nintendo in Sears, and of course Walmart, and KB Toys, um, where they had a bunch of NES games. They had the Super NES. They had the Sega Genesis. You can just try. I think did it? Wait a minute. Did it have the Sega? I think it did. Anyway, you can just play them until some other kid is like, "Hey, my turn," right? But um, or your mom is like, "Hey, we're leaving the store now," right? um, but I remember going. I had saved enough of my allowance to buy Mario 3. I went to KB Toy Works and um, seeing Mario 3, which is what I came for, and next to it, Mega Man 6. And I loved the Mega Man games. I had rented Mega Man 3, 4, 5, and 6 from the store where you could rent them. Didn't get very far. I mean, Mega Man 3 was the one I got the furthest on. I think I actually did beat all of the initial boss, the first 8 bosses, I think, is what it was. And then I didn't go any further than that. But I got pretty far in Mega Man 3 without beating it. With Mega Man 4, 5, and 6, I probably beat like 2 bosses each, and that was it. Um, and again, when I tried playing Mega Man 2 on the NES Mini, forget about it. I'd have to play that thing for, I'd have to put in some major time to get that, to beat even one, which I didn't do. Anyway, so when I saw Mega Man 6 there next to Mario 3, I was like, oh, should I get Mega Man 6 instead? And I was like, but I got the game I came for, which I'm glad, because it's a game that I, you know, very much enjoyed and was able to actually beat, and beat, and again, like I said, sometimes taking the shorter route, sometimes taking the scenic route, but always having a fun time. Um, then of course you had the SNES came out. Um, which, yeah, I'm pretty sure that came out before I actually got Mario 3. Yeah, so it was probably, it wasn't 96 yet, because that's when the N64 came out. Oh, and outside the original Game Boy, I remember getting the original Game Boy. That was the first video game thing I ever bought. And the only game I had for that was Super Mario Land, which was a lot of fun. Everyone who plays it knows 4 levels, but and you might be able to hear the music in your head. But the thing about the Game Boy is you're putting in the time trying to beat these levels, and then you're finally making progress, and then all of a sudden the screen fades, and you're like, oh crap, the batteries are going. And of course, probably the best game to play on there is Tetris, which is probably one of the greatest video game ever. It's extremely simple, but extremely fun, addictive, and pretty much endless. I don't know if you can even beat that thing. But it's just a matter of what level you're reaching. But and then learning out later that the music is actually Tchaikovsky, or a version of the Sugar Plum Suite, whatever it is. But okay, then so the SNES came out. I didn't get that at the time. But then later, the late '90s, I guess, I got the N64. That was the second video game system I bought. And I loved that thing. I only had 2 games for it, Mario 64 and Zelda Ocarina of Time. And it was just, those were such great games, such fun games. And I still maintain that the N64 is the most beautifully designed console ever. I mean, that thing's got the curves of a woman on it. I mean, it's so nice. And the controller, I also love the control. When you first look at the controller, you're like, what the heck is this clumsy looking thing? It's got, I mean, you went from the regular Nintendo controller, which, the D-pad and the A-B pad and start select. And then you had the Super Nintendo controller, which was rounded instead of squared off. And you had the A-B and the XY, right? And the D-B pad. And you had a couple things on the top, didn't you? I'm not as familiar. I haven't put as much time on that. I think you had a couple on the top, right? But then with the N64, suddenly you have these 3 prongs, right? And you've got the joystick in the middle, and you got still got the D-pad over here, and you've got the A-B, and XY, I guess, and then these 4 yellow buttons, and then the 2 top buttons, and then there's another button under the joystick, and it's like, what the heck am I supposed to do with this? But after you figure it out, it actually worked. It actually worked pretty well. I got really used to it and quite comfortable with it. And spent many delightful hours playing. Now the N64 now seems to have this. There are a lot of people for whom it still holds a special place in their heart. Then there are others who are rather critical of it. That the game library wasn't very big, and the ratio of good games to bad games was not very good. The balance tended to be on the not so good games. And then of course it was first generation of the 3D thing going on, so it was still a little bit, it wasn't as good as the later ones. But at the time, playing Mario and Zelda was awesome, right? I wasn't complaining. And I beat Mario 64. I did not beat Zelda Ocarina of Time. I got stuck. I should have just erased the memory and started over again. Maybe, I don't know. I don't remember how I even went, but I remember getting stuck in a temple or labyrinth, whatever it is. I was in an empty room. The exit was on the other side of the room. There's a ravine that cuts the room in half. I don't know if it was just an empty ravine or whether there was water going through it or whatever. But there was a gap between over there and where I was, and I couldn't bridge that gap. I didn't have anything on me to bridge that gap. So I was just stuck in an empty room, and that's the way my playing Ocarina of Time ended. And then later on, when I think I was either buying Nintendo a Game Boy DS or buying some games for a DS or something. But I was at GameStop and for some for where I was there for, and I saw an SNES on the behind the counter for a reasonable price, and I was like, "Oh, I'll take that too." So I finally got an SNES. I finally was able to play Super Mario World all the way through instead of just 10, 15 minutes of Walmart. And that was a blast. That was fun. Uh, and yeah, and then of course there was that was I don't remember how many years later. Of course, after the N64 came out, there was the GameCube, which was the first Nintendo system that didn't have cartridges. It had this little disc, and it was a box. I mean, the name was apt. GameCube. It's a cube that you play games on. Um, but I looked at it and I was like, "What the heck is this thing?" It doesn't look like much, and it's got disc instead of cartridges. I was a cartridge guy. I was a Nintendo guy and I was a cartridge guy. I was like, come on, you leave the disc to PlayStation. You're the cartridge company. You were. um, and then around the same time, you had the Sega Dreamcast, which fascinated me because that always seemed like a system that was designed to fail. I remember reading about it and I was like, who's going to buy this? I mean, this thing's going to be out of date like 2 weeks after it comes out. I mean, because you had the PlayStation 2, I think, coming out soon afterwards, and that was like, that had some pretty impressive stuff going on with it, including you could place DVDs on it, right? I never had a PlayStation 2, but I think that was one of them, right? One of those things. Um, so the Dreamcast, while it gets a lot of love these days, which I'm glad to see, people are recognizing that while it was it was kind of set up to fail at the time. You know, in the competition, it wasn't going to do very well against the other competition. Um, at the time, it's still a pretty good console, and it's got some pretty good games on it, which is what matters, right? You know, the console is only as good as the games that are on it. And with the and again with the GameCube, it was the first Nintendo system to come out without a Mario game out of the gate. You know, the NES had, Super Mario Brothers. Um, the SNES had Super Mario World. Um, N64 had Mario 64. GameCube had, I don't know what it had coming out of the gate. It did have a game called Luigi's Haunted Mansion. I don't know if that was a one of the games that was available when it first came out, or that was later. But that was kind of the substitute. Instead of getting a Mario game, you had a Luigi game, and it was instead of being the bright, colorful, Mario game that we're used to, it was Mario in a dark building pointing a flashlight around. Different feel to it. And then, of course, after that, they had the Nintendo Wii, which is the worst name of a console ever. I don't know what that name, what that means in Japanese, if it means anything in Japanese, or what they call it in Japan. I don't know. And then they had the Wii U, I think, and then of course the Switch, which became quite popular. It seems to have been quite successful, and now the Switch 2 is going to be coming out soon. This is March 18th, 2025, as I'm recording this. And it's also kind of interesting because you've got the next generation of PlayStation seems to be about ready to come out, or has come out, or something. I don't keep up with this stuff anymore, but it seems like video games are at this point where the hardware advancements don't really mean much anymore. You do have the specs, you know, where the numbers go up and stuff, but as far as what it actually practically looks like and what the gameplay is like and everything, the difference between one generation, the last generation, and the latest is negligible, if anything. You know, it used to be when you went from the first generation to second generation, third generation, fourth generation, there were noticeable differences, right? In the graphics and how well it was rendered and how big the games were and and how well they responded to the controller and stuff, you know. But now it's not. It doesn't seem to be like that anymore. Which brings it right back around to what always mattered in the first place, which is how fun are the freaking games. And Nintendo figured that out a while ago. There was some point where Nintendo just gave up trying to to compete with the latest advancements in graphics from PlayStation or Xbox or whatever, and they were just like, hey, we're just gonna make fun games. We're not gonna try to make it fancy here. We're just gonna make fun games that are fun to play, and the controllers are responsive like it should be, and you know, it'll be good. And it was. Evident for the most part, evidently. And yeah. And evidently you could play, you know, retro games online, or you can order them through the Switch or so. I don't know how all that stuff works. Which, I mean, there's so many good games that are made in the past that you can go ahead and play, that you don't even have to worry about the latest stuff. You don't even have to, you know, there is kind of this, we're at this point in entertainment in general where the quality of what's being produced now is so not very high. You know, it's not really impressive at all, and which makes you think, should I even bother with the latest? Should I even bother trying to read through all this? Should I bother spending money on this? Or should I just go to the past and dip into the cornucopia of goodness that's there? Should I go back and play retro video games that are still so fun and still so challenging? Should I go back and watch older films? And you know, there's a whole century of film that you can go into and discover or rediscover great films. And then, you know, with the music, so much music to discover and rediscover. And it seems to be that way with video games too. Now it's like, should I bother with the latest? Or should I just play the retro games? Or did I already say that? Anyway, but anyway, the video, this video is almost a half hour long. I just wanted to talk about, obviously, my experience with video games, and hopefully, if you actually listen to this whole thing, you found some part of it enjoyable. So, thanks for listening. Bye.